Early this morning, on the 3rd of January 2026, U.S. forces struck Venezuela. President Nicolás Maduro and his wife were captured, removed from the country, and are now facing charges in New York. The official story? Drug trafficking, narco-terrorism, restoring democracy. But if you believe that's why the most powerful military on earth just invaded a sovereign nation, overthrew its government, and announced plans to run the country, you haven't been paying attention. Let me show you what this is really about, and once you see the pattern, you'll never believe the official story again. Venezuela sits on 303 billion barrels of oil. That's not a typo. 303 billion barrels, the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Iran, more than Canada and Iraq combined. Venezuela controls roughly 18% of all the oil reserves in the world, and for decades, the United States has wanted control of it. This isn't speculation, it's not conspiracy theory, it's documented history. Every time a resource-rich country refuses to play by American rules, the same playbook gets deployed. Sanctions, blockades, regime change, military intervention. Iraq had oil, Libya had oil, Iran has oil, and now Venezuela. The story never changes, only the excuse does. Here's what's remarkable about this moment. Trump didn't even bother hiding it. In a Fox News interview just after the strike, he said the U.S. would be very strongly involved in Venezuela's oil industry. He announced that American oil companies, the biggest in the world, would take over Venezuela's energy infrastructure. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, and start making money for the country. Not for Venezuela, for the country, meaning the United States. He said U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, would help run Venezuela until a safe and proper transition could happen. Translation? Until a government that obeys Washington is installed. This isn't liberation, it's extraction, and they're not even pretending otherwise. Let's rewind. In 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq. The official reason? Weapons of mass destruction. Except there were no WMDs. That was a lie. What Iraq did have was the world's 5th largest oil reserves. Within months of the invasion, U.S. oil companies were operating in Iraqi oil fields. Contracts were signed. Infrastructure was rebuilt under American supervision. The oil flowed, but not to Iraqis. In 2011, NATO intervened in Libya. The official reason? Humanitarian intervention, protecting civilians from Muammar Gaddafi. Libya also happened to have Africa's largest oil reserves. After Gaddafi was killed, Libya descended into chaos, but the oil kept flowing to Europe, to the US, to anyone except Libyans. Today, Libya remains fractured, violent, and unstable, but its oil is accessible. That's not a coincidence, that's the point. Iran has been under sanctions for decades. Why? Nuclear weapons, they say. Terrorism, they claim. Iran also has the world's 4th largest oil reserves. And every U.S. administration, Republican or Democrat, has worked to isolate, weaken, and if possible, overthrow the Iranian government. Not because of ideology, because of oil. Venezuela is just the latest chapter in the same book. Now, before I show you how this affects you directly, the person watching this who's not a politician, not a CEO, not someone who profits from war, if you want to keep seeing the truth about how money and power actually work, hit subscribe, because this channel doesn't sugarcoat it. We show you the system as it is, not as they want you to believe it is. Venezuela didn't just have oil, it refused to hand it over. Under Hugo Chavez and later Nicolás Maduro, Venezuela nationalized its oil industry. That means the government controlled production, not ExxonMobil or Chevron. Oil profits were supposed to fund social programs, healthcare, education, housing. Whether that actually worked is debatable. Corruption, mismanagement, and economic collapse destroyed much of what Chavez built. But here's what mattered to Washington. Venezuela wasn't playing ball. It sold oil to China. It partnered with Russia. It refused to bend to U.S. demands. So the U.S. imposed sanctions, crippling ones. They froze Venezuelan assets, blocked oil exports, seized tankers on the open sea. They didn't do this to help Venezuelans. They did it to collapse the economy. And it worked. By 2025, Venezuela's oil production had fallen to less than a third of what it was in the early 2000s. Not because the oil disappeared, because the infrastructure decayed, investment dried up, and sanctions made it nearly impossible to sell. Trump called this a blockade, and he was right. It was economic warfare designed to strangle the country until the government fell. And when Maduro still didn't leave, they moved to the next step: military force. You'll hear a lot about democracy in the coming days. U.S. officials will say they're restoring freedom, that Maduro was a dictator, that the Venezuelan people wanted this. Maybe some did, maybe they didn't. But let's be very clear, the United States does not invade countries to spread democracy. If it did, Saudi Arabia, an absolute monarchy where women couldn't drive until 2018, wouldn't be America's closest ally in the Middle East. Egypt, ruled by a military dictator who overthrew an elected government, wouldn't receive billions in U.S. aid. U.S. supports dictators all the time, as long as they're friendly dictators. Maduro's crime wasn't being authoritarian. His crime was being an authoritarian who wouldn't sell his oil on American terms. And that's the part they don't say out loud. But Trump did. He said the U.S. would take over Venezuela's oil industry. Not help, take over. That's not democracy, that's colonialism. Now, here's the part most people miss. You might think, I don't live in Venezuela, this doesn't affect me. Wrong. Every time the U.S. invades a country for resources, you pay for it. Not just in taxes that fund the military, not just in the lives of soldiers sent to enforce these policies. You pay for it in the price of everything. When oil becomes a weapon, when production is controlled by force, when supply routes are militarized, when entire nations are destabilized to secure access, markets become unpredictable, prices spike, supply chains break, inflation rises. You're told it's global instability, but it's not random, it's designed. The same companies that profit from war are the ones that set oil prices. The same politicians who authorize invasions own stock in defense contractors. The same system that extracts wealth from Venezuela extracts it from you. Not with bombs, with interest rates, with inflation, with wages that don't keep up, with costs that never stop rising. You're not immune to this system, you're inside it, and every war fought for resources makes your life harder, not easier. Here's what you need to understand. Oil isn't just fuel, it's power. Whoever controls oil controls transportation, manufacturing, food production, energy grids, military mobility, everything. For over a century, the United States has structured its foreign policy around one goal: control the oil, control the world. That's why there are U.S. military bases in 80 countries. That's why the U.S. spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. That's why every oil-rich nation that refuses to cooperate becomes a target. This isn't about freedom, it's not about security, it's not even about Americans. It's about maintaining dominance. And the people who pay the price are always the same. The Venezuelans whose country just got invaded, the Iraqis who lived through 20 years of war, the Libyans who watched their nation collapse, the Americans who see their tax dollars fund endless conflict while infrastructure crumbles at home, the workers everywhere who watch prices rise, wages stagnate, and get told it's just how the economy works. It's not how the economy works, it's how power works. Trump says the U.S. will run Venezuela until a transition happens. But transitions don't happen, they're installed. Whoever replaces Maduro will be someone Washington approves, someone who privatizes the oil industry, someone who opens the door to U.S. companies, someone who ensures the oil flows where it's supposed to, toward profit, not people. The Venezuelan opposition will be held up as heroes. Some might be, some might not, but they won't have real power, because power won't belong to Venezuela anymore. It'll belong to the corporations that moved in the moment Maduro was removed. And in 10 years, when Venezuela is still struggling, still poor, still fractured, they'll blame socialism, they'll blame corruption, they'll blame anything except the system that gutted the country for oil. Because that's the pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is what Modern Money Truths is about. Not just explaining how money works, but showing you how power works. How wars are justified with lies, how resources are stolen with legal language, how ordinary people, here, there, everywhere, get crushed by a system that's designed to concentrate wealth upward. You're not supposed to connect the dots, you're supposed to believe the story. But the story is always the same. Iraq, Libya, Venezuela, oil, sanctions, invasion, and in every case, the people suffer while corporations profit. If this video showed you something the mainstream won't, subscribe. Because this is just one chapter. The system that invaded Venezuela is the same system that runs your economy. And once you understand how it works, you stop being a passenger. You start seeing through it.